All right, this is just going to be a quick tutorial showing you how to import some chapters into EdTech books and make some basic editing that would be necessary for most books. So I'm going to be working in this book, Student's Guide to Learning, Design, and Research. I'm going to start by getting a Google Doc that's been prepared. I'm going to copy the URL, make sure that it's shared so anyone with the link can view it. Go to EdTech Books, and I'm going to click the drop down, Add Chapter. I also have a button at the bottom of the list of chapters here where I can add a chapter. I call this chapter psychometrics. Paste in my Google Doc, create chapter. This might take some time depending upon if there are images in the Google Docs chapter, because what it's doing is it's importing all the text as HTML and then also downloading any images and storing them on the local server. So after I've done that, you'll notice that psychometrics is now shown here at the bottom of the chapter list. If I want to go ahead and move it around in the book, I can come up here to the drop down and click click Organize. And if I scroll down here, psychometrics, I can drag it up. I'm going to put it in the research methods section, even though it's not a good fit, but make it level 2 so it's going to be indented. And I'm just going to go ahead and publish it right now, just because I know it's going to be pretty good. So now it's here. I'm going to click on psychometrics. Here's the content. The content looks like it came over pretty well. The headings are not formatted properly, so I'm going to go and do those. So to do that, I'm going to click Edit this item. I'm going to delete any unnecessary text. I'm going to leave the authors for a second. I'll come back and do those in a moment. For any headings, I'm just going to put my cursor on the line where the heading is, click the styles drop down here, and make the top level headings heading 2. I'll need to go back and look at this. It looks like this is heading 3. For figures and tables, I'm just going to follow APA and bold the figure or table text, and then make the caption italics. Make this heading 2. Again, I may have to go back and make sure that I'm doing the right ones for each heading level. I have a couple of missing images here. It looks like those might be bullets. So again, I'm going to come back and do those. This is kind of a unique situation, so that's not common. So I'm not going to spend time fixing that right now. All right, so there are my headings. I'm going to delete this hard return just because I don't need it. I have keywords here. I'm going to save those for later as well. And for references, I'm going to select all my references and hold on Shift and select, and then go to paragraph reference. You'll see they should do hanging indent at that point. So that formats it here, but it also does something else that's really handy in a second. So I'm going to cut out these keywords from the bottom. I'm just going to put them at the top for now, just so that I don't forget that they're there. And I'm not going to adjust anything else here. Just click Save Chapter. Okay, so a couple of things have changed. So you notice my headings are all the way that they should be. But if you look over here, now I have a side nav, because now that I have headings on the chapter, the page can recognize that. So that makes it easier for my reader to jump through them. Also, because I listed those references, or I tagged those references as references, now I have this nice reference list over here that lets me jump to specific things. All right, so there's that. So this chapter doesn't have an abstract, but I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. But so the content editing that you would do on a chapter, you do under where the pencil icon is. To do everything else, so unique settings for the chapter, adding an abstract, adding notes, and all those kinds of things, there's a separate area for that, and that's the chapter settings. So if you click the drop down here and go to settings, I'm going to just pretend like this is the abstract. So I'm just going to copy this and then go to the settings. So in this settings area, I have a form with just a lot of elements on it. I'm going to paste this abstract here just so you can see what it looks like. You have editor notes here. So this is useful if you have multiple people working on a book, or if you want to be able to keep notes for yourself. So I'm just going to make a note for myself that I need to verify heading levels, just to make sure that I made the right things heading 2 and the right things heading 3. For any of these, when you edit it, you'll see the save button turns blue. So you can either click the save button, or if you just click out of the field, you'll see it says saved up here. So it saves each field separately. You can adjust you can add like numbers to the title here as well as adjust the level, but that's typically best done back where we were before in the chapter organization area, just so that you can see where the chapter falls in relation to other chapters. A couple of other settings that are probably important for you is that you can turn on PDF rendering for the chapter. So if you turn that on, then it'll queue the chapter to be rendered by as a PDF on a separate server. This takes a little bit of time. Every time you save the chapter, it'll queue it to be rebuilt. And because it's a kind of an intensive process that's done on a separate server and then uploaded. So it can take anywhere from just 2 minutes for the PDF to show up to a few hours, depending upon how long the queue is. If this is for an edited volume, I can mark this as peer reviewed, and then I'll get a badge that says it's peer reviewed. And then I have a bunch of other settings I can adjust as well. I can also add keywords here. So that keyword list that I had on the previous page, I'm just going to exit out of this, and you'll notice that those things were saved. I don't need to go back and save anything, but my abstract is now showing up here the way that it should. This is nice. The reason that it's better to do it this way, so I guess take a step back. When you're editing, you do have a drop-down option here for abstract, and so you could just apply the abstract style to your abstract within the content of the text, or within the text content itself. The drawback to doing that is that if we have the abstract in this separate field area, that empowers us to do some cool things later on. So eventually my plan is for there to be search capabilities that only search within the abstract and those kinds of things. So by having the abstract separate, it just gives us more power down the road. But you're welcome to keep the abstract in the actual text of the document and just format it the way you want. So for keywords, I'm just going to copy these keywords here and go apply them to the chapter. So again, going back to the settings page, keywords have to be added one at a time at this point. Eventually I want to move to allow you to paste them all. But what we're trying to do is limit the number of keywords. So whenever you start typing in a keyword, it'll do a search. If you don't see a pop-up showing up, then that means that keyword doesn't exist. And just click add. So I'm just pasting that huge list and then deleting down to, I don't want that as a keyword. That's not as good. Let's see. Item response theory would be a good keyword. Measurement. Let's see, reliability. Validity, I don't see showing up. And generalizability theory. If I want to get rid of any of these, I just click on it and it'll go away. But once the keyword is in the system, now if I start typing in a keyword, I can just select it this way as well. So I'm gonna get, well, that's actually a bug I need to fix. Oh no, so it's gone. It just didn't show up. There we go. I just had to reload the page before it would let me delete it. So there's that. So a couple other things that are helpful are each page will generate the suggested citation for you. Actually, sorry, I'm jumping out. I don't have a script, so I apologize if I'm jumping around. So we need to add the authors. So I have two authors here. To add them, I just go to the authorship tab. When I do that, I can start searching for the author in the system. The author that I'm searching for is not in the system. If you have author editing privileges, you can, if they're not in the system, you can create an account for them. So I'm going to go to create author. By default, you want to make your authors visible unless you're trying to add like a student or copy editor who you just want to have access to the chapter or the book to edit it. Then you could add them as a hidden author. But so I added her. As I did that, you should see her name pop up here. And let me add the other one as well. As I type in it'll be searching for me. If it's not finding anything, there won't be a drop down, and I won't have any option to add the author. So I'm going to go to create author again. And there they are. If the authors are in the wrong order, I can just come in here and move them around as necessary. But now that I've done that, I'm going to come back, edit, delete these things so that my chapter is cleaner. So now that I've done that, the system has an author identified. It should generate a citation down here automatically. So there it is. If I if I don't like this citation, or there's things that I want to change about it, you can do that manually. So if you go to the settings page again, you have a citation area down here. So by default, citation visibility says show the citation if available. Because I put authors on the chapter, there is a citation available. I can do a manual override of the citation. So here's my new citation. If I do this, it'll override the default. Only do that if there's just something, I don't know, that you can't fix otherwise, because the nice thing about having it generated automatically is that any changes that are made, like to the book title, for instance, will be propagated to all these suggested citations throughout the entire book. Also, if you're copying this, if this is like an open resource that you're copying from a previous version, you need to provide attribution. You can do that here and in this citation of previous versions area. And what that'll do is just in the suggested citation box at the bottom, it'll also append a note that this was previously published in this other place as well. There's that. Another question was about callout boxes. Let's jump back to that. So when you're editing a document or editing a chapter, the main things that you're going to be using are in this row of options here. Then I've also created a bunch of custom tools here under tools. So callout boxes are a common feature that we use to just kind of show text in a pullout box to add to give it attention. So do tools, callout box, give your callout box a title. I'm just going to call this editor's note. Note. Yeah, there are different styles of callout boxes, and this is just really just the color of the heading. So you could play with this if you want, or just leave it as the default. Once it's there, you can then come in and change it here in the WYSIWYG as well. If you decide later you want to change the style, you can just right-click on it, go to callout box, and change it to a different color. That way, the color will not be shown here in the WYSIWYG, but once you save it, you'll see. So that particular class or style had this purple background. And so that's done. Those are set by default. The colors of these custom classes are set by default, but you can override them in the CSS for the book, which I can show you in a second. So that's how you add a callout box. You shouldn't have to do anything in the HTML to do that. Again, you should use the tools drop down here. Another one that's commonly used is the YouTube video one. So for this, you just paste in the YouTube ID or the URL, and then choose high resolution if it's a newer video. This is better than the YouTube embed because the YouTube embed isn't designed to be like printed or shown like as a PDF or anything like that. So this does its own unique embedding approach that just looks better. And I think those are the main ones here. But obviously there are lots of other tools that you can learn about if you go read the style guide or just try them out. Give it 1 second. Okay, so another thing to the copyright was another question. So copyright is set at the book level. So if we jump back to my book's cover page, now if I go to settings, these are settings for the book. So if I scroll down, I have a copyright section here where I choose my copyright license. So just choosing from this drop down then, I set this as CC BY, so now on the book I get this license notification that says it's CC BY. And this is intended to apply to all chapters in the book. Now, because it's not intended that copyright will change from chapter to chapter, the copyright notification doesn't show up on every chapter by default. But you do have the option if you want to change that. So if you go back to your chapter, you can go to the settings page, and you can use the copyright override tool here. And so if you set this to anything other than not specified, it will show a copyright notification on the page. So now I should have a copyright notification here at the end. So what this means is that if you want to add the notification to every chapter, you can. But it also means that for like an edited volume, if you have some authors that want to release their work under a CC BY, some authors that want to release it under CC BY NC, then you can do that on a chapter by chapter basis. Another setting here that will be is probably noteworthy is that did I already talk about PDF conversion? So if not, this is where you set that just at the chapter level. This is why I should be using a script. I think that's most of the questions that have come through. Let me check. Oh, I apologize. Let me just make sure that these are all the questions. Yeah, I guess the last thing is just author bios. If you have the ability, if I've given you permission to edit author bios, then if you go to the drop-down authorship, down here at the bottom, you'll see the author's bio information, affiliations, and those kinds of things. So you can update those down here and also add images if you have those available. So when you go to the authorship page, if you're on a chapter, it'll just be the authorship for the chapter. But if you do it when you're on the book cover page, then you'll have the authors for the book, and then you'll also have the authors for every chapter in the book that you can edit. So there's also a list down here, because sometimes like you create an edited volume and you want to be sure that you have all of the authors' affiliations. So this will tell you if you're missing any of those or if you're missing authors with bios. By default, I don't think the chapters show author bios at the end, so they don't. So you can change that just by going to settings and down in the, oh no, sorry, it's in the authorship tab now. Yeah. In the authorship tab, just say show biographies either at the top or the bottom of the page. And once you turn that on, it should, oh, these authors don't have bios. Once they do have bios, then they would show up here at the bottom of the page. So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful, and good luck.